How's it going, everybody? Too Spooky here. And today I'm going to be bringing you guys both a theory and discussion about Conquerors Haki. Mainly if Sanji and Zoro or any other Straw Hat crew members will awaken Conquerors Haki. So I figured I would start with a brief description of what exactly Conquerors Haki is. Now, to put it simply, Conquerors Haki is essentially an individual's overwhelming sense of willpower, and those who have awakened Conquerors Haki are able to exert their willpower onto others. Through this ability, the user is able to instantly knock out anyone within a certain range who has a weaker will. Although those with a stronger sense of willpower will be able to resist the effects of Conquerors Haki, although depending on how strong their will is, they may still be affected by it by feeling very weakened afterwards, and those with a very strong sense of willpower will be completely unaffected. Conquerors Haki can also be used for a few other things such as taming animals. Now that's basically the gist of it, but it should also be mentioned that Conquerors Haki is something that cannot be achieved through training, although those with Conquerors Haki are able to reinforce it through personal growth. The exact stipulations for awakening Conquerors Haki are also unknown, but we do know it can only ever be awakened through the user's own willpower, and it has also been said that those with the qualities of a king will achieve it. Although there is one moment at Marineford after Luffy used Conquerors Haki, and Garp said, "He was born with it, as I thought," showing us that it is quite possible you need to be born with this ability to ever achieve it. And the final thing is that Conquerors Haki is a very rare ability, and it is said that only 1 in 1 million, or 1 in several million people will ever have this ability. So far in One Piece, the only confirmed, keyword confirmed, users of Conquerors Haki are Luffy, Ace, Shanks, Whitebeard, Big Mom, Silver's Rayleigh, Doflamingo, Boa Hancock, and Don Chinjao. So out of the many characters introduced to us in the One Piece world, only 9 characters have awakened Conquerors Haki, although I'm certain they will not be the last. There are still many things we don't know about Conquerors Haki, and there's still many people who have yet to awaken it, and there are likely some who may have already awakened it, but either we don't have confirmation that they possess it, or we just haven't seen anything to lead us to believe they do. So this strikes the question of who else has Conquerors Haki, or who has yet to awaken it. Some of the popular examples of characters who many fans believe have Conquerors Haki would be Monkey D. Garp and Monkey D. Dragon, Kaido, Goldie Roger, and Blackbeard. However, I've also seen that many people believe that Zoro and Sanji will also awaken Conquerors Haki. To which I ask you, could they? I figure that this is definitely something we should discuss, because frankly, I can see both sides of the spectrum being very possible. I'll start with why I believe Sanji and Zoro could awaken Conquerors Haki. The first thing that leads me to believe that this could be possible would be something that Don Chinjao said during his fight with Luffy in Dressrosa. He said that in the sea, there are countless people with the right qualities to become a king. You must challenge them. You must become the top of all the conquerors. This not only shows us that Conquerors Haki may not be as rare as we think, but that there will be many other Conquerors Haki users throughout the new world. Now, to become King of the Pirates, Luffy must become the top of all the other conquerors, which means that Luffy still has many others he must conquer to achieve his goal. But what about Zoro and Sanji? What do they need to do to achieve their goals? Zoro's goal is to become the strongest swordsman in the world, and Sanji's goal is to find the All Blue. For Zoro to achieve such a goal, he is going to need to defeat or conquer many swordsmen throughout his quest, until he finally is able to defeat the current strongest swordsman, Hawkeye Mihawk. Now, on Zoro's quest, he has and will run into many powerful swordsmen, and I think it's possible that while he is on that quest, he will eventually cross swords with someone who has awakened Conquerors Haki, or maybe even multiple people who have. Of course, this is all speculation, so just take it as food for thought. I think this idea could also become more of a reality if it is ever revealed that Mihawk has awakened Conquerors Haki himself. As of right now, it appears as if Mihawk does not have this ability, or at least he has shown no signs of it to the audience. However, it is quite possible, as the world's strongest swordsman, that he could have or awaken this ability, because in a way, Mihawk is the king of swordsmen. We've also seen that Mihawk was a rival to Shanks, who is one of the strongest users of Conqueror's Haki. So to compete with Shanks, it could be possible that Mihawk also has this ability. So if Mihawk did have this ability, it would make sense for Zoro to awaken it as well, so he can someday defeat Mihawk and become the strongest swordsman in the world. Now with Sanji's goal, this example doesn't really apply, because to achieve his goal of finding the All Blue, he simply just needs to seek it out and find it. To do this, Sanji will need to defeat his enemies along the way, of course, but he doesn't necessarily need to conquer anyone along the way to achieve this goal. Like I mentioned earlier, it is quite possible that you need to be born with this ability to one day awaken it. Now if this is true, it would in a way make perfect sense, because if we look at Luffy for instance, after Luffy uses Conqueror's Haki at Marineford, one of the Vice Admirals states that it's not surprising that Luffy has this ability, because he is the son of Monkey D. Dragon. This implies that Dragon himself has this ability, or is just powerful enough himself to pass this ability onto his son. This also brings up the question if Garp has Conqueror's Haki and passed it on to Dragon, who passed it on to Luffy, or if this is all just coincidence, and they all just happen to have very strong wills, which is why they were able to achieve this. And for another example, Ace had Conqueror's Haki, and he was the son of the Pirate King himself, Goldie Roger. So although we don't know for sure if Roger had Conqueror's Haki, I think we can all agree that it's pretty much confirmed that he did. So because Ace also has this ability, it is likely that he inherited this ability from his father. So when it comes to Zoro and Sanji, this could be another reason why they could one day awaken it. With Zoro, we don't really know anything about his parents, which leads many people to believe he is related to the samurai or some other powerful family. Now we have no proof of this, so I could be completely out of line. But if one of Zoro's parents were a samurai or someone equally strong, it is possible they could have passed this ability onto him. And with Sanji, because he is a member of the Vinsmoke family, we know that he comes from a very powerful family who rule over their own kingdom, making him a prince. Now, although we have yet to see any other members of his family use Conqueror's Haki, it has been a reoccurring theme for members of royalty and those put through horrible conditions to one day awaken Conqueror's Haki. Now, although Sanji isn't exactly royalty, he is considered a prince of the Germa Kingdom. Now, for a few examples of what I mean, Boa Hancock is known as the Pirate Empress and Snake Princess. And although she wasn't exactly born into royalty from our knowledge, she was originally a member of the Kuja Pirates as a child, before she was captured and sold as a slave. Now, as a slave, we can only imagine the horrible things that she was put through, which would mean she needed to have some immense willpower to endure that. The willpower of a conqueror, so she could conquer both the pain inflicted onto her and the pain of the memories she now has to carry of being a slave. Now, to conquer all of that and become the Snake Princess, I believe that these are all factors in her eventual awakening of Conqueror's Haki. I mainly believe this because of our next example, which is Doflamingo. Doflamingo was born into royalty as a world noble, and from what we've seen, none of his other family members have shown any signs of Conqueror's Haki, and frankly, neither did Doflamingo at first. But after he and his family were tortured by the unforgiving townspeople, Doflamingo swore to survive no matter what they did to him, and that he would one day get even with the people who hurt him. Right after proclaiming this is when Doflamingo awakened his Conqueror's Haki for the first time at the age of 8. So although the situation is somewhat different for Boa Hancock, I think something similar is how she was able to awaken her own. Now you may be asking, well, what does this have to do with Sanji? Well, when Sanji was young, because he was not a superhuman like his other siblings, he was constantly beaten and bullied by them. And eventually, after his continued failures, his own father decided to just erase his own existence by locking him in the palace dungeon with an iron mask over his face, leaving him all alone, and then staged a fake funeral spell for Sanji to make it seem like he really was dead. Sanji remained in the dungeon for quite a while, and eventually his siblings found out he was still alive and decided to beat him some more. Aside from Reiju, of course, who would eventually help Sanji escape. But when Sanji was escaping, he ended up running into his father one last time, who was more than happy to let him go, so that Sanji was no longer his headache, under the condition that Sanji never tell anyone about his relation to the Vinsmoke, crushing Sanji one last time before he left. So even if his family show no signs of having Conqueror's Haki, because Sanji was put through such harsh conditions, and then even after that almost starving to death, it is quite possible that Sanji's will could be strong enough to awaken Conqueror's Haki, because his will to live after everything he's been through is truly something else. My final example would be the fact that every character who has awoken Conqueror's Haki so far has been very powerful, and considering Sanji and Zoro, along with Luffy, have been called the Monster Trio, which means that they are all very powerful individuals. Now, although Zoro and Sanji may not be in the top 10 strongest characters, they are still some very strong individuals and should not be underestimated. Another thing I quickly want to mention is that so far, we have yet to see two individuals with Conqueror's Haki on the same crew, which makes me doubt the possibility of Sanji or Zoro awakening it. However, we need to look at Silver's Rayleigh. Again, it's not confirmed that Goldie Roger had Conqueror's Haki, but we can assume that he did, and because Rayleigh was also a member of Roger's crew, we would then have one example of two Conqueror's Haki users on the same crew, which means that it could be possible for Luffy's crew as well. I should also mention that Shanks was a member of Roger's crew, and he also has Conqueror's Haki, but I'm not going to include Shanks because he likely awakened his Conqueror's Haki after his time with Roger's crew. Now, to further this possibility, Zoro and Rayleigh specifically share a lot of characteristics or parallels. They are both right-hand men to their captains, they are both swordsmen, they both have a scar over their eyes, and they both refused to join their captain's crew at first. Now, this could be some sort of foreshadowing or a parallel to the fact that Zoro will someday awaken Conqueror's Haki, because the former Pirate King's right-hand man could do it, so maybe the future Pirate King's right-hand man could do it as well. When it comes to Luffy's crew, every member holds some sort of strong quality or leadership skills in their own way, which means that in theory all of them have the potential to one day awaken Conqueror's Haki. But the two most likely to achieve this, in my opinion, would of course be Zoro and Sanji. And I would imagine that if one or both of them do, Zoro will likely be the first to do so. However, because Sanji is generally compared to Zoro and they share some sort of rivalry, I could also easily see Sanji awakening it soon after Zoro. Now, on the other side of this discussion, I can also easily see neither of them awakening Conqueror's Haki, for a number of reasons. The first would be because I feel it could cause some sort of issue within the crew itself, because Luffy needs to conquer the other Conquerors to become the king of the pirates, and if there were other Conquerors within his own crew, that could cause some internal issues and interfere with Luffy's goals. I also think that because Conqueror's Haki is said to be such a rare ability, it's very unlikely that Luffy would just happen to have multiple members with it in his crew. Although Luffy's crew members are 1 in a million in their own way, I just think it's unlikely other members of his crew would just happen to have this ability as well. However, like Don Chinjao said, there are countless people with these qualities, so maybe they aren't as rare as we think, and Zoro, Sanji, or maybe even a different crew member could awaken their own. Now, although Rayleigh does have Conqueror's Haki and he was a member of Roger's crew, who likely had Conqueror's Haki himself, I would like to ask the question as to whether or not Rayleigh awoke this ability before or after Roger's death. Because if it was afterwards, this could back up the idea that multiple Conquerors can exist together, so long as they all haven't awoken their abilities. However, this is a bit of a stretch, and I think it's safe to assume that Rayleigh awoke this ability while Roger was still alive. My final argument would be that Zoro and Sanji won't awaken Conqueror's Haki, because they may have strong wills, but they do not have quite the same sense of willpower as someone like Luffy, nor do they need immense willpower to achieve their goals. Don't get me wrong, I think they both have an extremely strong sense of willpower, but it might not just be what they need for Conqueror's Haki. Like we said with Sanji earlier, he just needs to find the all blue to complete his goal, which will be difficult, but there isn't exactly certain people he needs to defeat to achieve this. And with Zoro, he needs to become the strongest swordsman in the world, by defeating the current strongest swordsman, Mihawk. Now, from what we've seen, Mihawk hasn't shown any signs of Conqueror's Haki, which means that he likely doesn't have it himself. So to achieve his goal, Zoro doesn't need Conqueror's Haki, which means that although he has potential to awaken it, he does not need to achieve his goal, meaning that Zoro likely won't awaken it. So after everything is said and done, will Zoro and Sanji awaken Conqueror's Haki? Well, we don't have a definite answer, but with all the information and possibilities we've just looked at, I can say it's certainly possible they could awaken it, and it's also certainly possible that they never will. So I want to push this question onto you guys. Do you think Zoro, Sanji, or any other Straw Hat crew member will awaken Conqueror's Haki? Make sure to let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Also, feel free to provide any information or example I may have left out, and feel free to debunk anything if I made a mistake. But regardless, I would love to know what you guys think of this topic. In my personal opinion, I feel like Zoro and Sanji likely won't awaken it, but I think that's just the skeptic in me. Because at the same time, I'm also not ruling out that possibility either, because it certainly could be possible. However, if only one of the two were to awaken it, I think it's far more likely that Zoro will be the one, at least the first one of the two. Anyways guys, make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed or learned something new, I would really appreciate it, and make sure to follow any of my social media, you can find those links in the description, and if you cannot get enough too spooky content, well, make sure to click here for the top 10 strongest One Piece characters, and if that's not doing it for you, make sure to click here for 10 facts about Untitled Chapter. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching this video today, I really do appreciate it, and I will see you all soon with a new video.